What's up, everybody? It's HBT with Straight Up Wrestling Show, guys. Here live, man. Here live tonight to talk a little bit about wrestling, guys, from Saturday mornings, man. I'm going to talk about Saturday mornings, how wrestling was when I was growing up. Saturday mornings, hey, we enjoyed professional wrestling. And, hey, usually the shows was only an hour long, man, but it had a serious impact on the business. And, hey, I miss those days, and I know a lot of people who grew up with wrestling back then missed those days. And I know a lot of fans who's watching wrestling these days did not get to experience championship wrestling, man, on Saturday mornings. I mean, at least from the territories. And I mean, the territories, the regional territories, a lot of those regional territories was very big companies, guys. Even though they operated small, they was very big as far as in the scope of everything. They covered a lot of area. And they generated some serious, massive ratings on TV, not just locally, guys, but as far as on TV. I mean, you could go and look at Memphis, championship wrestling out of Memphis. They did, just out of that area, they did 500,000 every Saturday morning, man. So, they was right up there with, NXT and with AEW. And, those are huge companies, man. So, you had championship wrestling, and like I said, coming out of Memphis, just the Memphis area, that would do 500,000, sometimes more than that. The Carolinas even did better than that. Carolinas not at first, they was doing 300, 400,000 back in the 70s and the 80s. They got up to 500. Then in the mid 80s, they started getting up to 700, 800,000 people watching that show. And that was a regional wrestling promotion, guys, that will reach 700, 800,000 people just coming off of that, just coming off of being shown on Channel 4 and Channel 7. That's without, cable access. They were in syndication, but they used to draw more. Their ratings was bigger than what NXT and AEW is right now. So, and it was only an hour TV show. But if you looked at the areas like Memphis, wrestling in Memphis, man, Jerry Lawler's Memphis championship wrestling, they would draw that 500,000, even when cable had came around and you had more channels. Of course, when you only had like 3 channels and then a couple UHF channels, like 5 channels, it was the number one thing on TV. But wrestling, even when cable came in, that was still the number one thing on TV in the Memphis area. And then it got like that in the Carolinas and Georgia championship wrestling on Georgia on Saturday mornings and Saturday nights. They would do a lot more. They would do more than anything else that was on TV. And coming from the Superstation, man, they jumped into they did 1 million, 2 million. They got into 2 million before Jim Crockett came and took over that promotion. So that's why Vince McMahon went down, and Vince McMahon wanted that time slot because he knew that wrestling on the Superstation, man, it drew so many people. So Vince McMahon went out there and he got that time slot for a little bit, man. But hey, wow, guys, this is something, man, that really needs to be talked about. Let me get a little bit more light here. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about that a little bit. All right, 20th Charity Kindmaster says it's late. Good night. Yeah, have a good night, Charity. It is late. I'm only going to be on for a little while, man. I'm not going to be on a lot. I'm just going to talk, like I said, I'm going to talk about this wrestling thing. I'm going to talk about, man, goodness sake, I ain't even really get set up. Hey, I was going to go and, and do this thing, not be on screen, but I decided to go ahead and do that. But, man, yeah, I'm just talking about wrestling from Saturday mornings. And, hey, I'm just wondering, everybody who's out here who went through that and went through those times, do you guys think if we had wrestling on Saturday mornings, it doesn't even have to be the companies, doesn't have to be from WWE, doesn't have to be from AEW. If we had wrestling from Saturday mornings today, would it have a giant impact on the business? Would it help? Would it help today? I think it would. I mean, straight up. Now, if it was WWE, AEW, I have no clue. I don't know how they would present it, to tell you the truth. But it was something about that Saturday morning, I think, that made wrestling fans remember everything that was coming up. Because you pretty much, if you was somebody who worked during the week, You didn't have to worry about, that, hey, I got to go to work the next day or whatever. You wasn't worried about being time constricted because most people were off on the weekends. Or if you maybe had worked a retail job or whatever and you worked or whatever, but usually on the weekends, people are relaxed or whatever. And you listen a little bit more and you hear what's going on when they telling you where, hey, the matches are going to be. You pay a little bit more attention to detail of what's going on as far as everything, as far as in the company, and you probably listen a little bit harder to the promos. But yeah, it had a giant impact on the wrestling business, and I think it would have a giant impact on the wrestling business today. Could you find some indies out there, man, that maybe that can rock and roll and pretty much get a big footprint in wrestling? I definitely believe that can happen. But, man, you have to have somebody like, I say Ring of Honor. They could have did it. If they would have been, but they was on, I think, Saturday nights, or was it Sunday nights, whatever. It was a horrible time. But if they could have got on Saturday mornings, they could have, and I think they did that at one time. But if they could have got on Saturday mornings and put together a great product, man, they could have done some serious damage. And that's right, right when AEW and WWE was doing their thing. I think Ring of Honor, if they wouldn't have gave it up right then and there, they could have if Sinclair wouldn't have gave it up, they could have put that in syndication on Saturday mornings, just like we had back in the day. And I think they would have did very well. Would they done what we did back in the day? I'm not actually sure, because one thing about Saturday morning wrestling back then is we would eat our cereal in the morning. We would watch the cartoons, and when the cartoons was over, wrestling would come on 11 or 12 o'clock. It depends on where you was at in the country or whatever, but wrestling would come on. And like I said, look, it usually was some great programs. And one thing about Saturday morning wrestling is when you really got to see all of the storylines, everything from the storylines, you got to see it all come together and make sense. And it was set up for the shows, the shows at the arenas and everything. So, man, it was a great thing having wrestling on Saturday mornings. And I think that's something that we actually need today. I would love to see it. Hey, man, what do you guys think? That's what I want to know. But hey, if you over on Facebook and you hearing this, you like what you see, you like what you hear, guys, go ahead and hit that like, share, join. If you here on YouTube, hit that like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding, 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 so you know what time we're on, like times like these, man. And if you over on Twitch, you do the same thing that you do over here on YouTube. And if you see us on X, guys, hit that like, share, tweet, and retweet, and follow the Straight Up Wrestling Show over on X. But man, yeah, so yeah, I'm just gonna keep on going here, guys. But yeah, like I said, look, Saturday mornings, I remember so many things from Saturday mornings, and it gave me so many great memories. Saturday mornings. Saturday morning is when the first time, I really got very, very interested in wrestling. Like I said, I've been looking at it ever since I was like 4 years old, and that goes all the way back to the early 70s, guys. But in 75, when I was like 8 years old, 75, I was in third or fourth grade, going into, I guess you could say going into the fourth grade. It was like close to the summertime. But man, I would never forget Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Hey, when he chopped Boris Malenko, knocked his teeth out, all the kids in the whole neighborhood was talking about that. Because, hey, when I was growing up, we went to everybody's house, guys. We walked all over the neighborhood miles, that was the neighborhood, guys. And we circled every kid you talked to. We all talked about wrestling because we all watched wrestling. We that's one thing we did on Saturdays. We watched wrestling. We watched Batman. Hey, we watch our cartoons, watch wrestling, watch Batman. So we talked about the great things that happened, but so many great memories from those Saturday mornings. I remember the first time seeing Dusty Rhodes, man. Dusty Rhodes against Harley Race on a Saturday morning. Couldn't believe how great, and that was in 1975 too. Couldn't believe how great Dusty Rhodes was, man, in the battle that he had with Harley Race. And I remember on Saturday mornings when I never forget when Terry Funk broke Dusty Rhodes' arm on, in championship wrestling from Florida, but they showed that on 8mm film on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. It was just incredible. And Dusty Rhodes, he still went ahead and fought the match after the referee had talked to him. I don't know what in the world the ref was saying to him at the time, but Terry Funk had that was Terry Funk was standing in the ring. He was the world heavyweight champion, and there was a couple guys came in there and attacked Dusty Rhodes, and he broke his arm. And I had seen Dusty, I only had seen him one other time when he had wrestled Harley Race, and that was an incredible match. I had seen that, and that was an incredible match. And at that time, I was like, Dusty Rhodes is the best wrestler I ever seen. And so I was just like, this guy's incredible. So when he was going to match up with Terry Funk, I'm like, Terry Funk, he's going to lose this World Heavyweight Championship, but Terry Funk had a plan. And, hey, so those guys came in, didn't know that Terry Funk actually had a bounty on Dusty Rhodes, but they broke his arm, and Dusty Rhodes stayed in there, and he fought Terry Funk, man. He fought. He told the referee, go on, and he fought him with one arm, and he battled, and Terry Funk was just focused on that arm and just did major damage to that arm in that match. But I'll never forget that. One of the great memories from the 70s, man, on national TV. And I'm going to continue to go on, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the memories from the 80s that I had from things that happened on TV, man, that was just so great from back in the day. And look, I know there's been some great memories as far as on WWE, WWF, or WCW, with things that happen on TV, but it pales in comparison, in my opinion, pales in comparison to the things that I saw on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling back in the day. What I saw from Georgia Championship Wrestling, what I saw from Championship Wrestling from Florida, what I saw from Southwest Championship Wrestling, Tully Blanchard's old father's wrestling organization, man. So, these things that I saw from these regional television, from regional television, my viewing pleasure from that was a lot better than what I see as far as the big companies have now. WCW, when it was still pretty much, it was regional, but they was national. They was on a national scale. Of course, I saw a lot of great things, man, but it does not matter what people say. WCW, it came from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. In my opinion, I mean, I'm not going to say in my opinion, it always was all the way up to Ted Turner bought it. It always was JCP, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. All those wrestlers that came into that, came into WCW, they all came from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. All right. And they kept the same style of wrestling and everything. What's up, Ray Sean? Ray Sean said wrestling came on right after He-Man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In certain markets. And then, it started in the Carolina started coming on after He-Man had got popular. But it's just so many memories that we had of that. And you see all these things that you see on the internet now. People always replaying a lot of these things that happened from wrestling back in the day. All that stuff happened on Saturday mornings. It was great, man. It was great times, great stories. And on Saturdays, one thing I think that the wrestlers had to do, or the wrestling companies had to do, because a lot of them, of course, they wasn't live. They used to tape them on Wednesday nights, sometimes Friday nights or whatever, depending on how fast they could get it to the the tapes out to the TV stations or whatever, but they would tape it. But you had to be on point. They had studio audiences, and some of them, most of the companies let people in free. I think Bosch out in Houston, he used to charge even for his TV tapings, but for the most part, everybody else, they used to let people in free. But it was incredible, man, because they had to be on point with their tapings. They knew all the promos had to be good. They knew the storylines had to be good, because that was their selling point. Because most of them that did those Saturday mornings, they did not get paid from the TV stations. They pretty much paid the TV stations through their advertisement by them going out and getting sponsorships, just like indies today go out and get sponsorships from, maybe car companies, your local mom and pops, pretty much eatery or whatever, restaurant and things like that. They will have to go out. They would do the legwork. The wrestling companies do the legwork to go out and get sponsors so they can give them money to get on TV. And they would get on TV, and that the TV stations, that by them being on TV, that right there will propel them to their shows or whatever. And a lot of people will show up to these shows because they saw them for miles and miles and miles away on the TV station and say, oh, okay. And, each one of these areas, they had their own championship. You had the Georgia Championship Wrestling. Georgia Championship Wrestling had the Georgia Heavyweight Champion. They even had a Macon heavyweight champion. You know, that's another part of Georgia, but they had the Georgia heavyweight champion. You had the Florida heavyweight champion. You had the Missouri heavyweight champion. You had, Mid-Atlantic. You had the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight champion, or the Mid-Atlantic region. But that was, like I say, covered the Carolinas, Virginia. But everybody knew that was that was just covering, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia when it boils down to it. But, that region got so big that the United States belt became more than America's belt or whatever from some of these other regions. And at first, it's like 7 different territories was, rewarded from the NWA to have a world tag team champions. But Mid-Atlantic, it ended up that they was the only ones that had it after a while. And as far as the United States heavyweight championship, Mid-Atlantic was the only one that captured that one too. Detroit had a version. Mid-Atlantic ended up being the only ones having it in the NWA. It's just they was that important. That was such a big, that was just such a big region and did so much for professional wrestling, man. But like I say, getting back to as far as TV go, TV meant so much on Saturday mornings for wrestling. To me, when they stopped showing Saturday morning wrestling, it took so much away from the sport, guys. I was just flabbergasted. I was shocked. And this pretty much happened around the time we had, the Monday Night Wars and everything is when they took off Saturday night main event, that was on the WTBS, so Saturday night main event, WWE superstars and things like that. Those things went away, and so they could focus more. And I think both companies, WWE, they stayed a little bit longer, but then they started, when they did stop, they started focusing more on Raw. And Eric Bischoff, he started focusing. He took it away out of the studio, and they started focusing more on Nitro and then Thunder or whatever. But man, something was missing. Something was missing big time, and that was Saturday morning wrestling. That's the way they always did it. And they took that away. We even had Sunday night wrestling sometime on TV too, but they took that away and just started focusing on Monday nights and then sometime on Thursdays and things like that. Maybe the Clash of Champions when they will have a Clash of Champions. But Saturday night wrestling, them taking that TV away took a lot of things out of wrestling, if you ask me, guys. Getting a little hoarse here, guys. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about a little more of this. But I'm going to come on tomorrow. I'm going to talk about this too. Guys, I'm going to do a part 2 to this and maybe part 3, but I'm going to continue to talk about this and talk about, the things that I saw. First time I saw Roddy Piper, 1979. It was 1979. It might have been 1980. But when I first saw him come to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, he had on his kilt. And, he was in the ring and he ready to play his bagpipes. And the referee told him, what are you doing? What are you doing? And his opponent, he was just adamant about this guy not playing his bagpipes. He was pissed off. He did not want Roddy Piper to play those bagpipes. And Roddy Piper was, he was determined to play his bagpipes. And the guy was picking on the kilt, picking on Roddy Piper, the kilt that he had on, calling it a dress and everything. And this is the first time I saw Roddy Piper. I'm like, who in the heck is this? And Roddy Piper, finally, this guy got really mad. Roddy Piper started playing those bagpipes. He just playing them, and the crowd just booing and everything. And the guy was trying to get at Roddy Piper. He's trying to get past the referee. Referee was trying to hold him back, and he got over, and he finally got past. He got past the referee, and he's touching Roddy Piper to stop him from playing the bagpipes. And Roddy Piper just went off on the guy, beat the living daylights out of him. I never seen Roddy Piper. I'm like, who in the world is this? This was 1980. I was in 6th grade, guys. I was like, who in the world is this? He beat the living daylights out of that guy. And that was the first time I seen Roddy Piper on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling on Saturday mornings, man. I was like, oh my gosh, my mouth was wide open. But that was another incredible moment that I saw on wrestling on Saturday mornings, man. Another incredible moment. I remember when Ricky Steamboat first came into Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in 1976. He came in and he took Ric Flair. Ric Flair was the Mid-Atlantic TV champion. He took him out, beat him on TV first time that he had came to TV. And this was just an incredible wrestler. And Ric Flair was my favorite wrestler. And I'm just like, wow, man, I'm looking at this guy, Ricky Steamboat. He just looked like he was unbeatable, guys. He was incredible. And then a few weeks later, man, after he had won the belt, Ric Flair, because Ric Flair was jealous of how good looking that Sting was, but how good looking Ricky Steamboat was. Ricky Steamboat had all the women swooning over him and everything, and we know Ric Flair is a ladies' man, so Flair was jealous. So Flair called him out, and and pretty much calling him out, was wanting him to get in the ring. And Ricky Steamboat, he's out there, he's talking to David Cottle, and he's talking to Bob Cottle and David Crockett, who's right there on the right hand side behind me. He was actually talking to these guys, and he was being called out. Oh, actuality, maybe it was David Crockett and somebody else. It might have been Bob Cottle, but it was David Crockett. I know it was a couple guys out there who was talking to him. I think it was Bob Cottle and David Crockett. Could have been David Crockett, and I forgot the curly head dude's name. It could have been those two. But Ricky Steamboat, he said, I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity because Ric Flair wanted him in the ring and everything. It was just, wow, it was crazy. But Steamboat tried to get in the ring. Ric Flair, when he got in the ring, Ric Flair cheap shotted him and took him out, and pretty much started dragging him on the floor, man, and just start scrubbing his face across the mat. Just boom, giving him serious mat burns. Took him outside, pretty much kneed him, threw him outside, and then pretty much just took him and just started scraping his face all over the floor. The cement. That's when you didn't have no mats or anything out there on the floor outside of the ring. It was just the cement floor. And he just scrubbing his face all over the place, and Steamboat just went crazy, and he just lost his mind, man. But Ric Flair was just dogging him out, and then he come back the next week, and Ricky Steamboat just had this big black eye, and his face just all swollen up. It was just crazy, man. Just crazy things that I saw on Saturday morning. It just that I will never forget, even though, like I said, they had a lot of squash matches. They didn't have the championship matches and things like that, but it was a time for you on Saturday mornings where you can really build up your storylines and make everything look very good, man. But yeah, that was just incredible things. Another thing on Saturday morning, man, like I said, the Anderson brothers, hey, notorious for really building up Saturday mornings. That's when I saw the Anderson brothers just basically, have their reign of terror on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and they reign of terror up in Georgia, man, Georgia Championship Wrestling. Those guys was just beasts, and I saw so many people, man, so many wrestlers just get their arm broke. And I remember my brother, I was like 7, I think I was 7 years old, and my brother, man, he was 3 or 4. I was like 7 or 8. I was 7. I think I was 7. My brother, 3 years old, and he seen that, and he just started crying. He became my brother, youngest brother, a huge wrestling fan, but he just started crying, and we had to explain to him and everything, had to talk to him. Of course, we didn't know if it was, we thought it was real back in the day, but we had to explain to him that the guy would be all right and everything, but that, broke his arm, and the guy was just crying on TV, man. He was crying, but they beat his arm to a pulp. And you talking about, man, a precision tag team. That was the Anderson brothers. On Saturday mornings, they was a terror, man. And they made, and even though they was bad guys, and everybody couldn't stand them or whatever. I used to like to see them, even though I couldn't stand them either, because they was always going to hurt somebody or whatever. But they was incredible to watch on Saturday mornings. Another person on Saturday mornings, Paul Jones, Chief Wahoo McDaniel, made Saturday mornings great, man, outstanding. First time on the Saturday morning is when I got to see Johnny Valentine. Now I thought Dusty Rhodes had an incredible elbow, and my aunts and everybody, they were telling me, hey, he doesn't have a better elbow than Johnny Valentine. And I saw Johnny Valentine finally start seeing him right before he got into the plane crash, guys. Johnny Valentine on Saturday mornings, man, on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, breaking bricks with his elbows, guys. So he was outstanding, man. He was outstanding. Dusty Rhodes was breaking boards, but he was breaking bricks. I don't know how real those bricks was, but he was breaking bricks. I mean, this guy, man, oh, man, Johnny Valentine was something else. But, guys, that's just some of the things that, that I witnessed on Saturday mornings. And mostly what I'm talking about basically is the 70s. But, hey, I'm talking about the 70s, 80s, 90s. Hey, wrestling was, I watched wrestling on Saturday mornings, and it had a major impact, a big impact. And because I think people got off on the weekends and everybody got to see it. If you had parents or grandparents or whatever that you was over at their houses or whatever, everybody got to see it. Everybody was watching the kids. So I think the whole family was getting caught up with professional wrestling. And I think that's one thing that we are missing today It's a huge element, and we definitely need it back. All right, Rayshawn says Saturday night main event was jumping. Yes, it was. And yeah, Saturday, you could throw out these Saturday nights into it too. Like I said, Saturday night main event, WWE's Saturday night, WWF back then. Saturday night main event was something special, and WTBS. On WTBS, you had World Championship Wrestling, WCW, NWA at the time, whatever it was. You had that on Saturday nights too, depending on what part of the country you was in. Even if you was up north, you still could watch WTBS, and a lot of people did in certain areas up north. They will prefer that over the WWE, man. But all over the country, you had great wrestling on Saturdays, at Saturday mornings and Saturday nights. And Mid-Atlantic used to run a show at 10 o'clock at night too, from 10 to 11, called Worldwide not Worldwide Professional Wrestling. It was Worldwide Wrestling on Saturday nights, and it was great. And then they started doing it on Sundays, but it was great, man. So it's just Saturdays meant so much. It was very important. And man, I will never forget it. And guys, like I say, this is a topic that I want to get back into. I'm finding out that I have a lot more to say than what I thought I would. But yeah, it's a topic I want to get back into, guys. But hey, like I said, before I leave out of here, man, make sure you hit that like button, whatever platform you're on, guys, to let me know that you are enjoying this and you are rocking with Straight Up Wrestling Show. But guys, man, so many memories from Saturday mornings. I remember Sting coming out, and you talking about somebody, man, he was like coffee to us kids or young people. I wasn't a kid, I was a teenager. Not when Sting first came on the scene. Let's see, maybe in my early 20s. Let's see, yeah, I was a teen when he first came to the NWA, but then I was in my late teens, about to roll into my 20s. But this guy was incredible, man. Come out with that Stinger yell and everything, and just basically he will wake you up. Ric Flair will wake you up on Saturday mornings with those great promos, the things that he did. These guys was like coffee, man. They was like coffee. They was just incredible. Saturday mornings, man, was just incredible time. And I think it will have a major impact today if they were still doing Saturday mornings, or if they went back to Saturday mornings. Hey, shock the world, man. Shock the world. Give us Saturday morning wrestling again. And I'm talking about from the major aspect, because the whole thing about it is Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling made themselves look like a huge company by being on Saturday mornings. Georgia Championship Wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling out of Florida, and none of these, and Memphis Wrestling, Jerry Lawler's Memphis Wrestling, with Bill Dundee and all these guys, man, over CWA, all these guys, CWF, CWA, these guys over in Knoxville and everything, it was not big territories, but they had a special way, and they knew how to control the cameras, man, to where their companies look real big on regional TV. And hey, their voices in the promos and everything was so good that it made it look like it was gigantic when it wasn't. But guys, man, look, once again, I appreciate you guys coming in and check this out. But definitely check this out tomorrow, man. Tomorrow I will come on and do a part 2 of this, and I will do a part 3 too, because I will be talking about these Saturday mornings, man, and a lot of the special things that happen on Saturday mornings. Championship wrestling from Saturday mornings, and hey, Saturday night needs needs mentions too. Definitely needs Saturday night, because I see so many incredible things on Saturday nights from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and even the World Wrestling Federation. I saw so many great things on Saturday nights, guys. Definitely deserves a mention. Hey, am I the only one who missed wrestling on Saturday nights? I'm sure I'm not the only person. I know I'm not the only person. But for those who missed it, hey, I'm sorry. I mean, if you wasn't born then, hey, I definitely understand. But guys, that was some incredible times, guys. And if you go back and you look, if young people, and I know you see a lot of things on the internet, and they show a lot of the stuff that happened, but a lot of those things that you see that's on the internet, a lot of this legendary stuff, it happened on Saturday mornings, guys. Saturday mornings is when we saw our wrestling. But hey, once again, man, Appreciate everybody. I'll see you guys a little bit later. Appreciate Rayshawn coming on. Appreciate my man, young man Lucas coming on. But I'll talk to you guys later. Y'all have a good night, good evening. Hey, I know some people saying good morning, but have a good night. Stay straight up. Peace.